I found $4,500 in a stranger's wallet at a M in Seoul. Returning it was supposed to be simple until the owner showed up with an offer that would either save my life or destroy it. This is how one decision at a cafe counter pulled me into Seoul's most dangerous underworld. Stay until the end to see how far one test of integrity can take you. The fluorescent lights of Moonlight Café buzzed with that particular frequency that made Amina's temples throb. It was 1:47 a.m. on a Thursday night or Friday morning, depending on how you measured exhaustion. She'd been on her feet for 7 hours straight, and the chemical smell of industrial floor cleaner mixed with stale coffee grounds was making her nauseous. Last call was 30 minutes ago, she muttered to herself, wiping down the marble countertop for the third time. Her reflection in the polished surface looked as tired as she felt dark circles under darker eyes. Her natural hair pulled back into a functional bun that had long since given up any pretense of style. The cafe was finally empty. Seoul's Gangnam district never truly slept, but even the most dedicated night owls had retreated to wherever wealthy people went at this hour. Amina didn't know and didn't care. She just wanted to finish closing, catch the last subway train, and collapse into her showbox apartment in Sindang-dong before her organic chemistry lecture. She was counting the register 3 for 2,000, about $285, a decent night when she noticed it. A black leather wallet, sleek and expensive looking, sitting in booth 7, the corner booth where that man had been sitting. Amina's stomach tightened. She'd noticed him earlier, impossible not to. He'd walked in around midnight, alone, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her entire semester's tuition, mid-30s, Korean, with the kind of face that made people instinctively straighten their posture, sharp jawline, calculating eyes, an aura of controlled power that made the air around him feel heavier. He'd ordered an Americano, black, no sugar, hadn't touched his phone once, just sat there for 47 minutes, watching the street outside with the patience of someone who had nothing but time and everything to lose. Now his wallet sat on the leather booth seat like a test. Amina approached it slowly, her worn sneakers squeaking on the freshly mopped floor. She picked it up with both hands, surprised by its weight. Quality leather, probably Italian, the kind of wallet that whispered rather than shouted wealth. She should take it to the back office, log it in the lost and found. That was protocol. Instead, her fingers found the small brass clasp. Just to find contact information, she told herself, so we can return it quickly. The wallet opened, and Amina's world tilted. Cash, American dollars, not Korean won, crisp $100 bills arranged with the precision of someone who respected money. She counted quickly, her heart hammering. 45 bills, $4,500. Behind the cash, a laminated ID card, Korean driver's license, Lee Hyun Jae, birth date showing he was 36. The address listed was in Hanam-dong, Seoul's most exclusive neighborhood, where chaebols and celebrities lived behind walls and security systems. But it was the other items that made her hands start to shake. A matte black metal card, no markings except a phone number engraved with laser precision on the back. No bank logo, no name, nothing to indicate what it opened or authorized. And a small, folded piece of paper with a handwritten phone number, different from the one on the metal card. Amina stood there, wallet open in her hands, aware that she was holding more cash than she'd seen in months, more than her rent, more than her tuition payment due next week, more than the medical textbooks she needed but couldn't afford. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her head, that thick Lagos accent that distance and time couldn't erase. Amina, money that isn't yours is poison. It will kill everything it touches, your peace, your sleep, your soul. She'd been 8 years old, standing in their small kitchen in Seoul, watching her grandmother return a vendor's excess change even though they barely had enough to eat. But Grandma, he didn't notice. Young Amina had protested. God noticed, you noticed, that's enough. 22-year-old Amina, standing in an empty Seoul cafe at a M, wanted to argue with the memory, wanted to rationalize that $4,500 could solve so many problems, could buy her 3 months of breathing room, of not choosing between textbooks and food, of not working double shifts that left her too exhausted to study properly. She closed the wallet with a sharp snap. The sound echoed in the empty cafe like a gunshot, like a decision, like a door closing on one version of her future and opening another. Amina walked to the back office, retrieved her phone, a battered iPhone 7 with a cracked screen, and dialed the handwritten number before she could change her mind. It rang once, twice. On the third ring, someone picked up. Silence, no greeting, no hello, just the weight of someone listening with complete attention. Hello? Amina's voice sounded too loud, too nervous. I'm calling from Moonlight Café in Gangnam. Someone left a wallet here, and I found a phone number inside. I wanted to describe the wallet. The voice was male, Korean accented English, smooth and controlled, every syllable measured, revealing nothing. Black leather, expensive looking. There's an ID inside for Lee Hyun Jae and stop. One word, absolute command. You opened it. It wasn't a question. Amina's mouth went dry. I needed to find contact information to return it. That's all I looked at. How much cash is inside? The question hung in the air like smoke. Amina realized with creeping certainty that she was being tested, that her answer mattered in ways she didn't yet understand. $4,500, American. I didn't touch it. I just counted to make sure it was all there before I called. Another pause, longer this time. Amina could hear ambient noise in the background, the low hum of expensive machinery, maybe a car, the muffled sound of other voices speaking Korean. Your name? Amina Johnson. You work at this cafe, Amina Johnson? Yes, I'm a student at Seoul National University, pre-med. I work here part-time. The cafe closes at 1:30 a.m. It's now 1:53. You're calling from your personal phone. Why not the cafe phone? Every question felt like a scalpel, precise and probing. Amina shifted her weight, suddenly aware of the security camera in the corner of the office, pointing directly at her. I thought a personal call might be faster, and I'll be leaving soon to catch the last subway. I wanted to make sure you could retrieve the wallet tonight. Honest, practical, slightly anxious, the voice seemed to be cataloging her qualities like a scientist examining a specimen. Where exactly is the wallet now? In my hands. I'm in the back office. I can leave it with the manager if... No, you keep it. I'm sending someone to collect it. 15 minutes. 15 minutes, but I don't. Moonlight Café, Gangnam. You'll wait in the cafe, visible from the street, wallet on the counter in front of you. Don't open it again. Don't count the money again. Just wait. I need to catch the last subway. If your person doesn't come in 15 minutes, I'll have to leave the wallet with Amina Johnson. Her name in his mouth sounded different, weighted with significance. In 14 minutes, someone will arrive. You'll hand over the wallet. Then you'll go home. This conversation will remain between us, understood? It should have sounded threatening. Instead, it sounded like a contract being offered, terms being set. Understood, Amina heard herself say. The line went dead. She stood there for a long moment, wallet in one hand, phone in the other, wondering what exactly she'd just agreed to. Then she walked back out to the main cafe floor, set the wallet on the counter precisely in the center, and waited. The minute hand on the vintage wall clock moved with agonizing slowness. Amina busied herself with final closing tasks, checking the espresso machine was properly shut down, making sure the pastry display was covered, straightening chairs that didn't need straightening. 12 minutes after the call, headlights swept across the cafe's glass frontage. A black Mercedes sedan, sleek and anonymous, pulled up directly in front. Illegal parking, but the kind of car that didn't worry about parking tickets. The engine stayed running. The rear passenger door opened, and a man stepped out. He was tall, probably early 40s, with the build of someone who'd spent years in military service or serious martial arts training, dressed in all black tactical pants, fitted jacket, boots that made no sound on the pavement. His face was impassive, professional, the face of someone who'd seen everything and been impressed by nothing. He walked to the cafe's front door. Amina realized she'd locked it during closing procedures. She hurried over, key in hand, hyper-aware of how vulnerable this moment was, her alone in a closed cafe at a M, letting a stranger in. But she'd made the call, she'd agreed to wait. She unlocked the door. The man stepped inside, and Amina caught the scent of expensive cologne mixed with something else, gun oil, maybe, or the distinctive smell of leather holsters. His eyes swept the cafe in a single practice motion, cataloging exits and sightlines. Amina Johnson. His English was better than the voice on the phone, more neutral. Yes, the wallet, please. She retrieved it from the counter, held it out. He took it without touching her fingers, examined it briefly, opened it, counted the cash with quick, efficient movements. His expression didn't change. From his jacket pocket, he withdrew a plain white envelope, thick, sealed. From Mr. Lee, he said, setting it on the counter, for your integrity and discretion. That's not necessary. I was just returning lost property. Mr. Lee insists. The man's tone suggested that what Mr. Lee insisted upon happened, regardless of protests. He moved toward the door, then paused, turned back. A word of advice, Miss Johnson. Some doors, once opened, don't close easily. You did the right thing tonight. Continue doing the right thing. Then he was gone, back into the Mercedes, which pulled away from the curb with the smooth acceleration of German engineering and Seoul money. Amina locked the door behind him with shaking hands. Then she picked up the white envelope. It was heavier than it should be. She opened it. Cash, American dollars again. She counted with numb fingers. $5,100 bills. $5,000. More than she'd returned. And underneath the cash, a small cream-colored card with embossed text. Integrity is rare. Keep silent, LJG. Amina's legs suddenly wouldn't hold her. She sat down hard on one of the cafe chairs, envelope in her lap, mind racing. She'd returned $4,500. She'd been given $5,000. This wasn't a reward. Rewards were proportional, reasonable. This was something else. This was an investment, a test passed, a door opening exactly as the man had warned. Amina looked at the cash, thought about her overdue tuition, her empty refrigerator, the medical textbook she needed that cost $400 and sat in her online shopping cart like a taunt. She thought about her grandmother's voice. Money that isn't yours is poison. But this money was hers now, given freely, payment for services rendered, honesty, discretion, the simple act of doing what any decent person should do. Amina thought, but how many would, with $4,500 in their hands at a M with no witnesses? She carefully put the cash back in the envelope, sealed it, and slipped it into her backpack between her biochemistry notes and her worn copy of Gray's Anatomy. Then she finished closing the cafe, turned off the lights, locked up, and walked to the subway station. The last train was pulling in just as she reached the platform. Amina found a seat, hugged her backpack to her chest, and watched Seoul blur past the windows. Somewhere in Hanam-dong, in a penthouse she'd never seen, Lee Hyun Jae was probably receiving his wallet, hearing the report from the man in black. She returned everything. She seemed nervous but honest. I gave her the envelope as instructed. And Lee Hyun Jae, whose face she couldn't quite remember clearly now, would nod once and file away another piece of data about Amina Johnson, 22-year-old Nigerian pre-med student who'd passed the first test without knowing she was being tested. Amina got off at Sindang-dong Station, climbed the stairs to street level, walked 3 blocks to her building, a narrow structure squeezed between a convenience store and a restaurant, the kind of place where walls were thin and rent was barely affordable. In her apartment, 1 room, a bathroom, a kitchenette, 15 square meters of Seoul real estate. She locked the door, engaged the chain, and finally allowed herself to shake. She pulled out the envelope, counted the money again to make sure it was real. Still $5,000, still impossible. On her tiny desk, buried under textbooks and highlighted notes. Her laptop showed her bank account balance. 47,001, about $39. The contrast was obscene. Amina took out her phone, tempted to call someone, her roommate from freshman year, her study group partner, even her mother back in Lagos, but the card's message echoed in her mind. Keep silent. So she stayed silent. She hid the money in a zippered pocket of an old suitcase under her bed, showered in water that never quite got warm enough, and lay down on her narrow mattress as the Seoul dawn began lightening her window. She didn't sleep, she just replayed the night, the wallet, the call, the man in black, the envelope. Integrity is rare, the card had said. Amina wondered if her integrity had just been purchased, or if she'd somehow sold something else without realizing it. Outside, Seoul woke up, millions of people starting their normal days, chasing normal dreams, making normal choices. Amina Johnson, holding $5,000 in unexplained cash from a man whose face she couldn't quite remember, was no longer one of them. She just didn't know it yet. 3 days passed. Amina went to class, took notes on cellular respiration and organic compound nomenclature, worked practice problems until her hand cramped. She went to the library, studied until closing, ate convenience store kimbap for dinner because it was cheap and filling. She didn't touch the money. Every time she came home, she checked the suitcase, still there, still real, still impossible to explain. On the 4th day, standing in the university bookstore, staring at the medical textbook she desperately needed, Robbins and Cotran, Pathologic Basis of Disease, 10th edition, for 87,000, Amina made a decision. She bought the book, paid with a credit card she'd immediately pay off with some of the cash, created a paper trail that looked normal, explicable. At home, she counted out $500 bills, 600,000 at current exchange rates, enough for the book plus a safety margin, and took them to a currency exchange in Myeongdong. The clerk didn't even blink, just counted the bills, checked them under UV light, and handed over Korean won. Amina paid her credit card bill that night. The textbook sat on her desk, heavy with knowledge and possibility. This is okay, she told herself. I earned this. I was paid for a service returning lost property securely and discreetly. This is legitimate. But on the 5th day, she noticed the car, a black sedan, different from the Mercedes but similar, expensive tinted windows, parked on the street outside her building. She'd walked past it on her way to the subway. When she came home 8 hours later, it was still there. Different parking spot, same car. On the 6th day, a man in a coffee shop, Korean 30s, reading a newspaper but never turning the pages. He'd been there when Amina arrived to study, still there when she left 3 hours later. On the 7th day, a woman on her subway car. Amina noticed her because of the designer bag, C-line, probably authentic, worth more than Amina's semester tuition, incongruous. On the Line 6 train towards Sindangdong at p.m., the woman got off at Amina's stop, walked in the same direction for 2 blocks, then turned down a side street. Paranoia, Amina told herself. Seoul was a city of 10 million people. Coincidences happened. But on the 8th day, she saw the man in black from the cafe, just a glimpse, across the Seoul National University campus plaza, standing near the library entrance. He wasn't watching her directly, wasn't watching her at all, apparently, but his presence felt like a message. We know where you are, we know where you go, we're watching. That night, Amina couldn't study. She sat at her desk, textbook open but unread, feeling the weight of unseen eyes. Why? She'd returned the wallet, she'd kept silent, she'd done everything requested. Unless the test wasn't over. Unless the wallet had been the first test, and keeping silent was the second, and not running to the police or asking questions was the third. How many tests were there? What happened if she failed one? The money sat in her suitcase like evidence. Evidence of what? She hadn't stolen anything. She'd been paid. For what exactly? Integrity is rare. Amina pulled out the card, studied the embossed letters, high-quality paper, professionally printed. The kind of card that came from someone with resources, systems, organization. Lee Hyun Jae, Hanam-dong address, a phone number she'd called once and didn't dare call again. She opened her laptop, hesitated with her fingers over the keyboard. Searching his name would leave a digital trail. Would they know? Was her internet monitored? Stop, she told herself. You're being paranoid. But paranoia was just fear that might be justified. Amina closed her laptop without searching. She got ready for bed, lay in the dark, listened to Seoul's night sounds, distant traffic, her neighbor's television through thin walls, the hum of the refrigerator. She thought about calling her mother, but what would she say? Hey mom, I found a rich man's wallet and returned it, and he paid me $5,000. And now I think I'm being followed. No, I don't know why. No, I can't go to the police. No, I can't explain. Her mother would panic, would demand she come home to Lagos immediately, would tell her Seoul wasn't safe, that she'd known the scholarship to Korea was a mistake. Amina couldn't do that, wouldn't do that. She'd worked too hard to get here, full scholarship to Seoul National University, one of only 3 Nigerian students in her program, proving every day that she belonged, that her grades from Lagos weren't flukes, that she could compete with students who'd had every advantage. She wasn't giving that up because of one strange night and some possible surveillance. Possible, she clung to that word, possible, not confirmed. But on the 9th day, the certainty arrived. Amina was leaving her anatomy lecture at PM when her phone buzzed. Unknown number, Korean area code. She almost didn't answer, then curiosity overwhelmed caution. Hello? Miss Johnson. The voice was familiar, smooth, controlled, measured. The same voice from the call 9 days ago. You've been cautious, prudent. These are good qualities. Amina's heart hammered so hard she could feel it in her throat. She stepped away from the crowd of students, found a quiet corner of the hallway. Who is this? You know who this is. You've been expecting this call since you took the envelope. Lee Hyun Jae. It had to be. What do you want? Her voice came out steadier than she felt. To meet, to talk, there's a proposition I'd like to discuss. I returned your wallet, we're even. Even, he seemed to savor the word. Miss Johnson, the wallet was returned 9 days ago. The envelope I sent contained payment for services rendered. We're not even, we're beginning. Beginning what? A conversation, one I'd prefer to have in person. There's a coffee shop 3 blocks from your current location, Damn Books and Coffee, 2nd floor. I'll be there in 20 minutes, please join me. And if I don't, then you don't. You're not being coerced, Amina. You're being offered an opportunity. Whether you take it is entirely your choice. He ended the call before she could respond. Amina stood there, students flowing around her, phone gripped in her suddenly cold hand. Don't go, the sensible part of her mind insisted. This is how people disappear. This is how normal life becomes nightmare. But another part, smaller but louder, whispered. He knows where you live, where you study, where you work. If he wanted to hurt you, he wouldn't invite you to a public coffee shop in broad daylight. And underneath both voices, a third, you need to know, you need to understand what you've gotten into. 15 minutes later, Amina walked into Damn Books and Coffee. If you're enjoying Amina's story and want to see what happens when she meets Lee Hyun Jae face to face, make sure you're subscribed. This is just the beginning. And trust me, you don't want to miss what comes next. Hit that subscribe button right now. Damn Books and Coffee occupied the 2nd floor of a renovated Hanok-style building, all exposed wooden beams and floor-to-ceiling windows that let in the afternoon light. The space smelled of old paper and fresh espresso, that particular combination that made libraries and bookstores feel sacred. Amina climbed the narrow stairs, her medical textbook heavy in her backpack, a physical reminder of what she had to lose. The 2nd floor opened into a large room lined with bookshelves, scattered tables, soft jazz playing from hidden speakers. A dozen people occupied the space, students with laptops, a couple on a date, an elderly man reading a newspaper, normal people doing normal things. And in the far corner, at a table positioned to see both the entrance and the windows, sat Lee Hyun Jae. He looked exactly as she remembered and nothing like she'd pictured. The sharp jawline, yes, the calculating eyes, but in the afternoon light, he seemed almost ordinary, a businessman taking a coffee break, nothing more threatening than tax attorneys or investment bankers. Almost ordinary, except for the way he sat, the controlled stillness that suggested coiled energy, and the way the chair across from him remained empty despite the crowded cafe, as if people instinctively knew not to sit there. He saw her immediately, a slight nod, an invitation. Amina crossed the room, aware of her worn sneakers on the polished wood floor, her faded jeans and university hoodie compared to his tailored charcoal suit. She sat down without being asked, met his eyes directly. If he wanted her intimidated, she wouldn't give him the satisfaction. Amina Johnson, he said her name like he was tasting it, deciding if he liked the flavor. Thank you for coming. You didn't really give me a choice. There's always a choice. You could have ignored the call, changed your number, filed a police report. You chose to be here. A cup of coffee sat in front of the empty chair, her chair now, cafe latte, still steaming, he'd ordered for her before she arrived. How did you know what I drink? She didn't touch the cup. You worked at Moonlight Café, according to their employee records, which aren't particularly secure. You received 1 free drink per shift. You always chose cafe latte, extra shot, oat milk, creature of habit. The casual mention of accessing employee records should have terrified her. Instead, it clarified things. This man had resources, reach, the ability to gather information as easily as ordering coffee. That's illegal, accessing private records. Yes, no apology, no justification, just acknowledgement. Amina picked up the latte, took a sip, perfect temperature, perfect ratio. She set it down carefully. What do you want, Mr. Lee? Hyun Jae, please. Mr. Lee is my father, and we don't speak. He leaned back, studying her with those calculating eyes. I want to offer you a job, or perhaps a partnership. The terminology depends on how you choose to view it. I have a job, had a job, at the cafe. You quit 3 days ago, gave 2 weeks' notice 9 days ago, immediately after receiving my envelope, but the manager, Mr. Park, divorced, 2 children, gambling problem, let you go early when you offered to forfeit final pay. You needed to distance yourself from that location. Smart. Every word he spoke revealed how thoroughly he'd investigated her. Amina felt naked, exposed, every corner of her life apparently open to his inspection. You're having me followed. I'm ensuring my investment is sound. The envelope contained $5,000, Amina. I don't distribute that amount without due diligence. I didn't ask for your money. I returned your property, that's all. And that's precisely why I'm here. Hyun Jae leaned forward, elbows on the table, hands clasped. His cufflinks caught the light white gold. Simple, expensive. Do you know how many people walk past lost wallets in the city every day? Hundreds, thousands. Do you know how many actively steal them? More than you think. Do you know how many find them, open them, see significant cash, and still make the call to return everything? He paused, let the question hang. Almost none, perhaps 1 in 10,000. Perhaps fewer. Basic human decency isn't that rare. It absolutely is. I've spent 15 years studying human behavior, Amina, testing it, measuring it, predicting it. The wallet test is simple but remarkably effective. I've run it 47 times in 12 countries. You're the 4th person to pass completely. Amina processed this. You leave wallets around intentionally to test people, to find people, specific types of people, intelligent, principled, desperate enough to be tempted but disciplined enough to resist, people who can function under pressure, make correct decisions when unsupervised, and keep silent when necessary. Find them for what? Hyun Jae smiled, and it didn't reach his eyes. That depends on what they're capable of. The last person who passed my test was a computer engineer in Singapore. She now manages digital security for several of my operations. Before her, a logistics coordinator in Bangkok who streamlined my shipping networks. Before him, a lawyer in Hong Kong who specializes in international contract law. And you want me for your particular skills, your pre-med, correct, second year, top 15% of your class despite working 20 hours weekly. Your academic focus is emergency medicine and trauma care. Last semester you volunteered at Seoul National University Hospital, Emergency Department, Saturday overnight shifts. You have steady hands, quick decision-making capabilities, and most importantly you understand discretion. Amina's coffee had gone cold. You want a doctor. I have doctors. I want someone who isn't yet established, isn't yet beholden to medical bureaucracy, ethics boards, mandatory reporting requirements, someone who can treat injuries without asking questions or filing paperwork, someone who needs money enough to be flexible but has principles enough to be trustworthy. The words landed like stones. Amina understood immediately what he was asking. You want someone to treat criminals, people who can't go to hospitals. I prefer to think of them as individuals who require private medical care, but yes, essentially, that's illegal, practicing medicine without a license, failure to report gunshot wounds, aiding and abetting, multiple felonies, yes, I'm aware, which is why the compensation would be substantial and the risks would be managed carefully. Hyun Jae's voice remained calm, reasonable, as if discussing a legitimate business proposal. I'm not asking for an answer today. I'm asking you to consider the proposition. Why would I possibly consider this? He gestured around the cafe, at the books lining the walls, at the windows showing Seoul's gleaming towers. Because you're drowning, Amina, slowly, invisibly, but drowning nonetheless. Your scholarship covers tuition but not living expenses. Your part-time job barely covered rent and food, forcing you to choose between textbooks and meals. You're brilliant, hardworking, determined, and is still not enough. Each word struck home. He'd seen her spreadsheets, apparently, her budget calculations, her reality. You sent in your scholarship renewal application last week, Hyun Jae continued, but your grades slipped 0.3% last semester due to exhaustion and malnutrition. Still impressive, still competitive, but no longer guaranteed. If you lose the scholarship, you lose everything: the visa, the education, the future you've sacrificed for. How do you? I know because I make it my business to know, and I'm offering you a solution. Work for me exclusively, discreetly, on call when needed, and I'll cover all your expenses: tuition, rent, food, textbooks, everything. You quit the CAF job, focus entirely on your studies, graduate top of your class. In exchange, when I call, you come. When I ask you to treat someone, you do so without questions. When you see things you shouldn't see, you forget them immediately. Amina's hands were shaking. She clasped them in her lap, hidden under the table. You're asking me to become an accessory to whatever crimes you commit. I'm asking you to provide medical care to people who need it. How they got injured isn't your concern. Whether they're criminals isn't your judgment to make. You're a medical professional, or will be. Your obligation is to treat patients, not prosecute them. The Hippocratic Oath says, do no harm. Helping criminals continue operating causes harm. The Hippocratic Oath also requires you to treat all patients equally, regardless of who they are or what they've done. Emergency rooms don't turn away gang members or drug dealers. They treat the injuries and let law enforcement handle the rest. His logic was smooth, practiced, seductive. I'm simply offering a private emergency room, same ethics, different location. It was a rationalization, and they both knew it, but it was a rationalization that had just enough truth to be tempting. I need to think about this. Of course, take a week, 2 weeks, a month if necessary. The offer remains open. Hyun Jae reached into his jacket pocket, withdrew a slim black phone, a flip phone, old-fashioned, simple. He slid it across the table. This is for you. Encrypted, secure, untraceable, only one number programmed. When you've decided, call. If you decide no, throw the phone away and forget this conversation. The $5,000 is yours regardless, payment for your integrity, nothing more. Amina stared at the phone, matte black, anonymous, heavy with implication. And if I decide yes, then the phone becomes your lifeline. When I need you, I'll call. You'll have at least 2 hours notice for anything non-emergency. Immediate response required for true emergencies. You'll be compensated $50,000 per semester, paid in advance, untraceable cash, additional bonuses for particularly difficult cases. $50,000 per semester, $100,000 per year, more than her mother earned annually in Lagos, more than she'd imagined having until she completed residency. Why so much? Because silence is expensive, because risk requires reward, because I'm paying not just for your skills but for your complicity, your conscience, your willingness to exist in moral gray areas. Hyun Jae stood, buttoning his suit jacket with practiced ease. You're a good person, Amina Johnson. That's exactly why this is difficult. If you were amoral, the choice would be easy, but you have principles, which means choosing to work with me requires sacrificing something precious. He started to leave, then paused. One more thing, the people who failed my wallet test, the ones who kept the money, who tried to use my credit cards, do you know what happened to them? Amina's throat went dry. What? Nothing, absolutely nothing. I let them keep whatever they stole. I simply never contacted them again. They got $4,500 and the burden of their own dishonesty. That's punishment enough. His eyes met hers, and for the first time she saw something that might have been warmth. I'm not a monster, Amina. I'm a businessman who operates outside conventional systems. There's a difference. Then he was gone, descending the stairs, disappearing into Seoul's afternoon crowds. Amina sat alone at the table, the encrypted phone in front of her like a coiled snake, beautiful and dangerous and impossible to ignore. She stayed for an hour, watching people through the windows, turning the phone over in her hands. It had weight, substance, the kind of build quality that spoke of serious resources behind it. Finally, she dropped it in her backpack next to her medical textbook and left. For 2 weeks, Amina carried the phone everywhere. It sat in her backpack during lectures, lay on her desk while she studied, rested on her nightstand while she slept. She never turned it on, never opened it, but its presence was constant, a question without an answer, a choice unmade. She researched Lee Hyun Jae carefully, using the university library computers instead of her personal devices, clearing browser history after every session. The information was sparse and contradictory. He appeared in business journals, occasionally listed as a silent partner in several legitimate enterprises, import or export, real estate development, technology investments, nothing illegal, nothing suspicious. But the gaps were telling: no social media presence, no photographs except official business headshots, no interviews, no public appearances, no paper trail beyond the necessary minimum. A man who existed but left no footprints. She found one mention in a Korean business blog, posted 3 years ago and quickly deleted. Rumored connections to Seoul's underground economy, but nothing proven, operates in shadows that even investigators can penetrate, smart enough to stay clean, powerful enough to stay untouchable. Underground economy, that could mean anything: smuggling, money laundering, protection rackets, human trafficking. Or it could mean nothing: rumors, speculation, the kind of reputation that accrued to anyone wealthy and private. Amina's organic chemistry study partner, Kim Jae-won, noticed her distraction. You okay? He asked after she'd missed the same question 3 times. You've been weird for weeks. They were in the library's quiet section, surrounded by students in various states of exhaustion and caffeination. Jae-won was a good friend, utterly reliable, completely trustworthy. She wanted desperately to tell him everything. Just stressed about scholarship renewal, she said instead, and money, always money. You could apply for that research assistant position in the anatomy department, pays well, Looks great on applications. Applied last month, didn't get it. Too many applicants, too few positions, too much competition from students who didn't need to work 20 hours weekly just to survive. Jae-won frowned, concerned. Are you eating enough? You look thin. She was eating enough now. The $5,000 had eased things considerably. Rent paid through next semester, groceries bought without mental calculations, textbooks purchased without guilt. But that money wouldn't last forever. Another year, maybe 18 months if she was careful. Then she'd be back to choosing between food and books, between sleep and work shifts, unless she made a different choice. That night, lying in her narrow bed, Amina did something she hadn't done since arriving in Seoul. She called her grandmother. Lagos was 6 hours behind Seoul. It would be late afternoon there, her grandmother probably in the kitchen preparing dinner, the same tiny kitchen where she taught 8-year-old Amina about integrity and excessive change. The phone rang 4 times before the familiar voice answered, warm and strong despite 82 years. Amina, my dear, it's been too long. Hi, Grandma. I know. I'm sorry. School has been challenging. Good, easy things teach nothing. Background noise, a radio playing Afrobeat, the sound of chopping vegetables. But you didn't call to apologize. Something is troubling you. Amina's throat tightened. Her grandmother had always been able to read her, even across oceans and phone lines. Grandma, do you remember the story about the market vendor, the one who gave you too much change? A pause, the sound of the knife stopping. I remember, you were 8 years old, thought I was foolish for returning money we desperately needed. I've been thinking about that story, about what you said that money that isn't yours is poison. Ah, her grandmother's voice shifted, became more focused. And now someone is offering you money that troubles your conscience. It wasn't a question. It's not illegal money, not exactly. It's payment for services, medical services, which is what I'm training for, but the circumstances are complicated. Complicated how? Amina chose her words carefully. The patients wouldn't be coming through normal channels. They'd need discretion, privacy, no questions asked. Another pause, longer this time. Amina, I told you that money which isn't yours is poison, but I also taught you that healing is sacred, that a doctor's duty is to the patient, not to the system. Do you remember when the police came to our neighborhood after the riot? Remember how Dr. Okonkwo treated everyone, the protesters and the officers, without asking who threw the first stone? I remember, he said. When someone is bleeding, I see blood, not politics, not right or wrong, just blood that needs to be stopped. Is this money payment for stopping blood, Amina, or payment for causing it? The question cut to the heart of everything. For stopping it, I think, but the people bleeding, they might be bleeding because they caused harm to others. And if you refuse to treat them, does their bleeding stop? Does the harm they caused get undone? Or do they simply die without medical care, and you remain pure while contributing nothing? Her grandmother's logic, as always, was both compassionate and ruthlessly practical. I don't know, Grandma. Then you're asking the right questions. The wrong person would be certain the money is good, or certain it's bad, with no doubt either way. Doubt means your conscience is working. A sigh, deep and tired. I can't make this choice for you, my dear. I can only tell you that integrity isn't about staying clean. It's about knowing when you get dirty and why, and living with that knowledge honestly. They talked for another 20 minutes about family, about Lagos, about everything except the real question. When they finally said goodbye, Amina felt both better and worse. She pulled the encrypted phone from her nightstand, held it in her hands. Integrity isn't about staying clean. Her grandmother had worked in a clinic in Seoul for 40 years, treating everyone regardless of their ability to pay, their background, their circumstances. She treated gang members and their victims, corrupt officials and the people they'd exploited. She'd never asked questions beyond what was medically necessary. Was this so different? Yes, whispered one part of Amina's mind. Your grandmother worked within the system, reported what needed reporting, stayed legal. But another part countered. And how many people died because they were too afraid to enter that system? How many bled out in alleys because hospitals meant police reports and arrests? Amina opened the phone for the first time. It powered on immediately, battery full. The screen showed one programmed number, no contact name, no other features, a phone designed for exactly one purpose. She could call now, could say yes, could solve all her financial problems with one decision, or she could throw it away, go back to the cafe. They'd hire her back. Mr. Park had said as much, work herself to exhaustion, scrape by, maybe keep the scholarship, maybe lose it. The safe choice versus the smart choice. The clean choice versus the practical choice. Amina powered off the phone without calling, but she didn't throw it away. Not yet. The decision came not from logic but from exhaustion. 3 weeks after the coffee shop meeting, Amina's scholarship renewal letter arrived. Conditional approval. They'd maintain funding for one more semester, but if her grades didn't improve to previous levels, renewal would be denied. 1 semester, 4 months to prove she could work less and study more, to achieve what had been impossible when she was working 25 hours weekly. She could take more shifts at the cafe she hadn't yet returned to, could push harder, sleep less, somehow find energy that didn't exist. Or she could make the call. That night, at 11:47 p.m., sitting at her desk with the conditional approval letter in front of her and the encrypted phone in her hand, Amina Johnson made her choice. She powered on the phone and pressed the only number. It rang once. Yes, Lee Hyun Jae's voice, immediately recognizable. It's Amina Johnson. I know, this phone has only one user. She took a deep breath. I'm calling to accept your offer, with conditions. I'm listening. I'll provide medical care when called upon. I'll maintain discretion. I'll ask no unnecessary questions. But I won't participate in torture, in interrogations, in anything designed to cause harm rather than prevent it. If someone is injured as punishment rather than accident or conflict, I won't be part of it. Acceptable. Continue. I need to know that the people I'm treating aren't involved in human trafficking, sexual exploitation, or anything targeting children. I won't use my skills to help those operations. A pause, considering. Also acceptable. For the record, I don't involve myself in those industries either. They're messy, draw excessive law enforcement attention, and require associations with unreliable people. Anything else? If I'm ever asked to do something that violates my core ethics, something I can't live with, I can refuse without retaliation. Define retaliation. You won't hurt me, threaten my family, or sabotage my future. Amina, if I wanted to hurt you, I'd have no reason to invest in your education first, but I'll make this explicit. Refusing a specific task won't trigger consequences. However, breaking silence, talking to police, family, friends, anyone about our arrangement would require me to protect my interests. Are we clear? Crystal clear. Then we have an agreement, $50,000 per semester, paid in advance. The first installment will be delivered tomorrow evening. You'll receive a text on this phone with a location and time. Collect the payment, verify the amount, and wait for further instructions. When will you need me? Unpredictable. Could be days, could be months. Keep the phone charged and within reach at all times. When I call, answer immediately. Response time matters. His voice softened slightly, almost gentle. You've made a difficult choice, Amina. I respect that. I'll do my best to ensure you never regret it. I'm already regretting it. Good. That means your conscience is intact. The moment this becomes easy is the moment I'll worry about you. The call ended. Amina sat in the darkness of her apartment, phone still warm in her hand, wondering what exactly she'd just agreed to. The next evening, the text arrived. Jamsil Lake Park, East Entrance, PM Blue Umbrella. She arrived early, walked around the lake twice, checking for anything suspicious. Seoul was safer than Lagos, but paranoia had become her constant companion. At exactly PM, A woman approached, mid-50s, elegant, carrying a blue umbrella despite the clear sky. She walked past Amina, set down a small shopping bag near a bench, and continued walking without breaking stride. Amina waited 5 minutes, then collected the bag. Inside, banded stacks of American $100 bills, she counted later, in her apartment with the door locked and chained. $50,000 exact. Also in the bag, a small first aid kit, professional grade, sutures, local anesthetic, surgical tools, antibiotics, pain medication, everything she'd need for field treatment of moderate injuries. And a note in Lee Hyun Jae's now familiar handwriting. Consider this an advance against future services. You're now on call. The phone stays charged, stays close. When it rings, you answer. Welcome to the arrangement. Amina hid the money in 3 separate locations, some in her apartment, some in her university locker, some in a safety deposit box she rented the next day using a fake name. Paranoid, perhaps, but she was now carrying enough cash to make her a target for ordinary criminals, let alone whatever complex world she'd entered. The first aid kit went into her backpack, disguised in a toiletries bag. She kept it with her constantly, a medical security blanket. And then she waited. Days passed, then weeks. The phone never rang. Amina attended classes, studied with renewed focus now that she wasn't working. Her grades began climbing back toward previous levels. She ate regular meals, slept normal hours, began to feel almost human. The scholarship office sent an update. Based on mid-semester performance, full renewal looked promising. She should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt the weight of waiting, of obligation unpaid, of debt accruing. 5 weeks after accepting the arrangement, at 3:47 a.m. on a Wednesday, the encrypted phone rang. Amina woke instantly, heart hammering, and answered before the second ring. Yes. Are you alone? Lee Hyun Jae's voice, tense in a way she hadn't heard before. Yes. Can you be ready in 15 minutes? Yes. A car will collect you outside your building. Bring your medical supplies. This is time sensitive. What's the injury? Gunshot wound through and through, upper chest. Patient is stable but deteriorating. I need him treated immediately without hospital involvement. Amina was already pulling on clothes, checking her first aid kit, forcing her mind into clinical mode. Through and through means potential lung involvement. I have a fully equipped medical facility. Just bring yourself and basic supplies. The car is 3 minutes away. He ended the call. Amina, dressed in dark clothes, laced her sneakers, grabbed her backpack, paused at the door, looking back at her apartment, her normal, safe, legal apartment, crossed the threshold into whatever waited outside. A black SUV idled at the curb, engine running. The rear door opened as she approached. The driver was the man in black from the caf, 3 months and a lifetime ago. Miss Johnson, he said, tone neutral, we're going to Gangnam, 20-minute drive. Mr. Lee will brief you on arrival. Amina climbed into the back seat. The door closed with the solid thunk of armored luxury. As they pulled into Seoul's pre-dawn traffic, she stared out the tinted windows at the city sliding past the normal world, the legal world, the world she was now leaving behind with every mile. The encrypted phone sat heavy in her pocket. Her first aid kit sat heavy in her lap. Her conscience sat heavy in her chest. But her hands, when she checked them in the dim interior light, were steady. Whatever waited at the end of this drive, she'd be ready. She'd made her choice, now she'd live with it. The stakes just got real. Amina's about to perform her first underground medical procedure, and trust me, nothing can prepare her for what she's about to walk into. Don't miss the next part where everything changes. If you're invested in this story, smash that like button and drop a comment telling me what you think Amina should do.